and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
Today, I'll be reacting to some of the recent coaching changes in college football. So, Penn State has just hired Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell to be their new head coach. And I am surprised by this hire because I didn't think that Campbell would leave because he's been at Iowa State for 10 years. And just before this season began, had signed a contract extension. But it does make sense that he would leave to go to Penn State because Penn State overall has been one of the most successful programs in college football and has won two national championships, both in the 1980s. While Iowa State never has, and probably never will win a national championship. But what he's done at Iowa State has been impressive. He's gotten them their most successful decade of football ever, going 72 and 55 in 10 seasons. Because before he got to Iowa State, they were one of the worst teams every year in the Big 12. They were not much ahead of Kansas, and he got them to where they mattered, not really nationally, but in the Big 12. Even though he never won a Big 12 championship, he did coach in the Big 12 championship at two times, and was the Big 12 Coach of the Year at three times. And after his first year, where they were still really bad, finishing 3-9. He got them eight winning seasons in 9 years, and took them to what would have been eight bowl games in 9 years, except because he left Iowa State, decided not to play in a bowl game this year. But in just his second year there, he got them eight wins, including a win over Oklahoma, who was at the time ranked number three in the country and ended up going to the college football playoff that year. And he also coached their best team ever in 2024, where they finished 11 and 3, and then had another pretty good year this year, finishing 8-4. And he's the one that coached Brock Purdy, who's the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. And he was only the last player drafted in the 2022 NFL draft, but he's turned out to be one of the best quarterbacks in the pro. Campbell's one of those coaches that gets the most out of what he has, which has never been much at Iowa State compared to what he'll be able to get at Penn State. At Penn State, he should be able to recruit in the top 15 easily. And at Iowa State, he was never able to recruit in the top 50. And I really don't see any reason why that Campbell couldn't win a Big Ten or a national championship at some point at Penn State. And then Kansas State head coach Chris Kleiman retired after that 7 seasons there. And that did surprise me because he's not that old. But Kansas State did win enough games this year for a bowl game, but because he retired, decided not to play and won. But Kleiman, every year except this past season, had always gotten more out of the roster he had than you would expect. And Kansas State has hired Texas A&M offensive coordinator Colin Klein to be his replacement. And I think this is a good hire. Now, it is a risky hire because Colin Klein has never been a head coach, but Colin Klein, before going to Texas A&M with Mike Elko, was the Kansas State's offensive coordinator under Kleiman for 2 seasons, and he was also Kansas State's quarterback at one time and was a pretty good quarterback for them. He was a Heisman finalist one year. So this hire does make a lot of sense. And I think that Colin Klein is one of the best offensive minds in college football right now. And Kansas State's offense was good when he was calling the plays, but since he's left, their offense has fallen apart. But now it didn't show up in the record last year, but this year it did. Kansas State lost a couple of games this year just because their offense was so bad. And Texas A&M's offense under him this year has been one of the best in college football. And if Avery Johnson does stay, I think Colin Klein could get him to play to his ceiling because he got Marcel Reed to play to his ceiling. And Avery Johnson is a very similar quarterback to Marcel Reed, a very talented quarterback that's a great runner and has a very strong throwing arm. Avery Johnson just has been inconsistent, but seems like he has the ability to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. The one concern with him will be at defense because Chris Kleiman was a defensive coach, and what the Big 12 though is a offensive conference still. So even though the defense may take a step back under Colin Klein, with the offense that Kansas State should have under him, I still think it's possible that he could win a lot of games at Kansas State, and I certainly think it's possible that he could win a Big 12 championship at Kansas State at some point. Arkansas has hired Memphis head coach Ryan Silverfield to be their new head coach. And if you've watched me a lot, you probably know that I don't like Arkansas because they've been one of Ole Miss's biggest rivals. I like to call them the Woo Pig Suey dummies. But I do think this was a pretty good hire for Arkansas. Ryan Silverfield has been one of the group of five's best coaches the past 3 years. He's been Memphis's head coach for the past 6 years. And while I don't think Silverfield is ever going to win a national championship or an SEC championship at Arkansas, because Arkansas has always been a bad program, I do think he's a big upgrade over Sam Pittman. And one reason why this hire makes a lot of sense is Ryan Silverfield beat Arkansas this year at Memphis. And these past 3 years, he's 29-9 and 4-1 against Power Four teams. So imagine what he might be able to do at a Power Four uh, school. But Arkansas's problem has not been their offense. Their offense was plenty good enough this year to where if their defense had even been average, they would have had a much better record. And Silverfield is not going to keep Bobby Petrino as the offensive coordinator, which I do think is a mistake. He's taking his offensive coordinator from Memphis with him, but he's got to fix the defense because Arkansas ranked 127th in the country in points allowed this year. And with defense like that, you're not hardly going to win anything in the SEC. But I do think their defense will get better under him. And two things that he's wanting to fix immediately are turnover margin and penalties. And those two things can make a big difference in at college football. In 2025, Arkansas ranked 125th in turnover margin at -11, and they weren't much better than that in 2024 at -8. But at Memphis, at Silverfield's teams in 24 and 25 were really good in turnover margin. In 2024, Memphis ranked second at +18, and in 2025, they ranked 12th at +9. And then Arkansas in 2025 ranked 127th in penalty yards, averaging 67 per game. But the only risk I see with this hire is Silverfield has never been a Power Four head coach before. But something to remember with that is Kirk Cignetti had never been a Power Four head coach either when Indiana hired him, and I'd say that worked out pretty well. But that'll be it with this video. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.